Ladies and gentlemen, there is a high possibility that Imola will depart from Formula 1 after 2025. And at least they said goodbye with an exciting race. That not only brings life back to the fight for the Drivers' Championship, but also begins to give indications that McLaren may be taken by surprise in the upcoming races. This year, Imola says goodbye to Formula 1 for a very long time, but for us it's time to make probably its last summary. So it's time to detail the most relevant things that the competition has left us in Italian lands. Before the race started, as always, we had a few surprises that would slightly change the starting grid. The first is that after Yuki Tsunoda's violent accident, in classification, he started from the pit lane due to car configuration changes, breaking parc fermé. Franco Colapinto, who had also crashed in classification, was penalized with a starting position for the race, because his team sent him to form in Q1 before the notice of the session resumption, and that would cost him that position that would make him start 16th. Piastri clinched pole position with a blistering lap, narrowly beating Max Verstappen, allowing him to continue his winning streak. And all that remained was to see if that happened, if Max could win and with that also start his comeback for the World Drivers' Championship. Or if someone else could provide the weekend's surprises. And once the cars were lined up on the starting grid, the traffic lights would go out. And with that, the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix would begin. Piastri starts well and controls the race's early stages. Rosen starts better than Piastri Verstappen, but boxed in, he's unable to overtake. Piastri gets to the curve first, but makes the mistake of being overconfident, brakes early, and lets Max pass with a beautiful overtaking maneuver on the outside of Tamburello. He steals the lead and with it snatches the first position of this competition in a clear mistake by Oscar Piastri, so now the Australian would be in the uncomfortable position of receiving the dirty air of the Dutchman. In lap 3, Gasly went wide at the Piratella curve while battling Leclerc and fell out of the top 10. But for now, the focus was on Norris and Russell, battling for third place. For several laps, Russell defended against Norris, wearing out his tires. Norris also lost significant time compared to the leaders. Until on lap 11, with a beautiful maneuver on the Villeneuve curve, he managed to snatch the third position in this Grand Prix. However, at the front, Max was quite strong. And even pulling away from Oscar Piastri, who couldn't get closer in pace and gradually began to lose time, he got to be up to 3 seconds difference from the Dutch driver. By this point, Leclerc had made an early pit stop and did an undercut that had worked quite well for him. Noticing Piastri's tire wear issues, McLaren pitted him on lap 14 after Russell and Alonso had already made their stops. But precisely between his poor start and this decision, they ended up ruining Oscar Piastri's race, because he had a bad pit stop and then had to get into traffic. While Norris and Verstappen stayed on track, which would now give them a clear advantage if they were going for a single stop, and this was late. In traffic, Piastri had to overtake Tsunoda, Berman, Colapinto and Hülkenberg, which cost him time and tire wear. And yet, despite the drag reduction system and having slightly better tires, he was not getting any closer to Max Verstappen. But within those laps, we saw some interesting battles. For example, Leclerc overtook Noda in lap 21 and did the same with Oliver Berman in 23, trying to make his early stop strategy work. At the start of this Grand Prix, some drivers made early stops while others stayed on track aiming for a single stop strategy. Among them, Verstappen, Norris, Albon or Hadjar, but also those who started with the hard tire, like Antonelli and Hamilton. Meanwhile, Piastri kept trying to overtake in traffic, and when he got to Hamilton, he would overtake him. On lap 26, he overtook Andrea, Kimi, Antonelli and Isaac Hayar in succession. But during all those laps, he didn't cut any time off Verstappen at all. He even ended up losing time, so the war already seemed lost for him at this point. On lap 29, Norris tries to pit, but he has the very bad luck of a spin. After his stop, Ocon's car failed to restart due to a reliability issue. And this caused the appearance of the virtual safety car, which Verstappen took advantage of for a free pit stop. And when he came out, he had a 20-second lead over his rivals. During neutralization, Albon, Hadjar, Antonelli, Hamilton, Hülkenberg and Piastri also pitted, forced to return due to the early stop. At this point, the race seemed very much in Max Verstappen's favor. The virtual safety car left on lap 31. During that time, Hamilton overtook Hadjar for 5th place. Russell took the Aston Martins out of the points as they didn't stop during the neutralization, and that hurt them to the point that even Hülkenberg and his Sauber ended up overtaking them. Piastri, who had fallen to 4th, overtook Alex Albon to move up to 3rd. The virtual safety car affected Leclerc a bit, but he was still able to overtake, finding Hajar and passing him to move up to 6th. And he was catching up in pace to both Antonelli and his teammate. However, on lap 46, Antonelli's car failed, it was left stranded on the track, and this caused a full safety car to remove it. Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton, Alonso, Stroll, Albon and other drivers used the opportunity to pit and get better tires. In the final laps, Piastri took 2nd place again, but stayed out on track. And he had super worn out tires by this point. So it looked very difficult for him to challenge Verstappen for the victory, even though the differences were narrowing. The safety car left on lap 53, and exactly what was expected happened. Verstappen quickly pulled away, and McLaren didn't issue team orders to check if Norris, with superior tires, could challenge him. He battled with his teammate and overtook him on lap 58. With a 6-second gap to Max, a battle for the lead between Norris and the world champion was virtually impossible. And the last thing this race left us was its node. Entering the points, having overtaken Nico Hülkenberg, Hamilton dispatched Russell to take the 6th position, who also took advantage of the battle between Albon and Leclerc to pass them both, as Albon was trying to overtake Leclerc. At the Tamburello curve, he pushed him off the track, so they investigated him a few laps later. And Ferrari, fearing that the Monegasque driver would be penalized, he was ordered to give his position to Alex Albon, relegating him to 6th place, being practically the last action of this race. Because by the time lap 63 arrived, Max Verstappen was winning with absolute authority, scaring McLaren and cutting points in the drivers' table. Second victory of the season for Max Verstappen, who today knew how to win from turn number 1. But in addition to that, his control of degradation and his race pace were completely superior to all his rivals. So Max Verstappen is scary, and at this point, McLaren should be very afraid of what might happen in the upcoming rounds. The rest of the top 10 in the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix would finish as follows. Norris takes 2nd, salvaging his poor qualifying performance. Piastri finishes 3rd, the day's biggest loser. Lewis Hamilton finished 4th in a great race, while Alex Albon secured 5th place, continuing his outstanding performance this season. 6th position for Leclerc, affected by the safety cars. 7th position for George Russell in a disappointing Grand Prix for Mercedes. 8th place for Carlos Sainz. 9th place for Isaac Hayar. And, closing the top 10, Yuki Tsunoda, taking the last little point that this race left. As I mentioned earlier, Imola might bid farewell to Formula 1 for an extended period, after the Grand Prix that we just saw today. And at least, the last race that it probably has left us was a very good one. Much better than last year's, where this year we had a variety of strategies, overtakes, battles. And even though the fight for the lead was conditioned by McLaren's poor strategies, I think that overall, this Grand Prix deserves a rating of 8. Good race. If it's the last one in Imola for a long time, we can say that it has gone in a very good way. My drivers of the day are Alex Albon, Lewis Hamilton, and especially Max Verstappen, who showcased his skills. He's the best driver, proving it again by winning the race from turn 1. His leadership was never threatened and his pace was quite good, so it's scary what might come later in the season. And more so with the issue of flexible wings, which will be penalized starting from the Spanish Grand Prix. And my disappointment of the day was between McLaren and Mercedes, but being objective, I think McLaren is the one that disappointed the most today. First, Piastri foolishly loses the lead to Verstappen, and then McLaren finishes it off with a terrible strategy that ends up costing Piastri 10 points against Verstappen. McLaren's biggest concern now should be that the RB21 appears to have come alive in Verstappen's hands. And very difficult races may be coming in the next Grand Prix. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the summary of the 2025 Formula 1 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. But this is where I ask you, what rating would you give this competition? Did you like it? Did it disappoint you? And also tell us who have been your drivers of the day and your disappointments of the day from this Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Let me see all your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. Goodbye. Subscribe, turn on notifications to know when new videos are uploaded, and share this with friends. I also invite you to follow us on our Instagram and Twitter accounts. Links are in the video description. And see you soon for the preview of the Monaco Grand Prix 2025 of Formula 1. Thank you for tuning in and see you later. Thank you.